started making this video, I wanted to make a summary of man's search for meaning. But now I think it's turned into something else. Man's search for meaning has an overall theme. And that question is how people cope with very challenging situations and how to move forward with struggle in your own life. Frankl made himself a promise that he would not run into the wire, as they say, back in 1939 when he went to a concentration camp. Frankl was on the peak of making an amazing discovery of sorts in the scientific world, and when he got to the concentration camp, they took away his paper, they took away everything he had, all of his clothes, all of his belongings. They gave him a number, and that was it. So he had a choice. He could have decided, you know what, I'm just gonna die here and let it go, or I'm going to keep going and I'm gonna keep fighting. And he chose the latter. The culture today, in my opinion, has far too much mention of giving up, of just like, I'm just gonna commit suicide, you know? Because there is meaning in that not having it all right all the time. If you are struggling with like something like pain, loneliness, tragedy, the best solution is never to end it all, because that is not at all a solution. It's a temporary fix to a long-term problem that does no good to anybody. So, like, I saw this when I was watching The Watcher recently. The Witcher, not The Watcher. The Witcher is this Netflix show, and one of the characters, like, she gets taken to like this place, and like the first thing she does is like try to kill herself. And I was very confused. I was like, bro, that's your first thing that you're gonna do. Like, you have a little bit, you've been there for like a day, and you're just gonna do that? Like, that's something that we need to help fix, and something that we need to help change, so that people don't think the first solution is always like to do stuff that is very bad and should never and is never a solution to anything. One thing that Frankl said that gave me hope is, quote, "There are things which must cause you to lose your mind, or you have none to lose." So this kind of means that if you're so disciplined that you can't actually be affected by anything, then you're not really strong in your mind. There has to be something that can make you falter a little bit, and that's okay. We're human, and we're not supposed to be machines. So even in this situation, he was able to remember that if there's not something that can make you go over the edge, then you don't have a mind at the beginning. So more than ever today, people are feeling disconnected, even though in theory we're the most connected generation, most connected blah blah blah. No one really cares about that. But it's like just the other day, I got off Snapchat because I was on there and I wasn't really feeling any actual connection, even though I'm sending pictures of myself like back and forth. But you look back on it and you're like, wow, did I have a meaningful conversation one time? Did I get to like see if anyone was good, or did I just send a picture of myself doing like a nice smolder pose? And like, what's the point of that? Like, it's not actually doing anything but leaving the person, leaving me feeling more empty afterwards, feeling less satisfied with where I am. Because social media in general, it's just a big blob of what people want to show you. So like, you can even look at my posts on like Instagram. They're just like the best highlights of all of my stuff. You can look at anybody's stuff. It's just a highlight reel. It doesn't show the real person, who they are. So being on social media and stuff, it's a very good way to feel empty and feel like your life is not enough, which is not good. One of the things that helped Frankl was finding an appreciation for beauty. So even in a concentration camp, he was able to find beauty, natural beauty, through little things like seeing an amazing, stunning sunset, like over a barbed wire fence, or one night intentionally listening to someone singing live Italian prose. And in that brief moment of like calm within the storm, and he's just sitting back listening to that music, he was able to realize, like, wow, there can still be beauty in a situation like this, and I can keep going even through this. In this moment of whatever, of discovery, he found the true meaning of the phrase et lux in tenebris lucet, and the light shineth in the darkness. Outside of this phrase, he found another thing that was very helpful in helping him stay sane and mentally sound while he was in this concentration camp for about 6 years. And the second thing was finding something amusing every single day to relay to someone else in a story situation. So this commitment drove him to find humor in even the worst situations. Frankl did this in bitter cold weather, with swelling feet, clothes that did not fit correctly, being beaten by guards, being told he would be selected next guest, being getting starved from having so little food, like a single 3 ounces of soup a day or something crazy, and finally being disconnected from his friends and family and forced to work back-breaking labor every single day. I'm thankful, personally, that I don't ever have to experience anything at all comparable to what the Nazi concentration camp victims had to go through. But even though his challenges were far worse than most anything else other people are going to face today, we shouldn't completely discount what challenges we face. As Frankl said, quote, "Suffering will completely fill the human soul, no matter whether the suffering is great or small. The size of suffering is absolutely relative." That's why today, in a world where we have almost everything we need, it's so easy to not actually, to still have the problems that people when they actually had really big problems. So for example, somebody who lived hundreds of years ago on a farm, and they're just they have a small farm and they're just trying to cook it and make food and stuff. The suffering they have, even though it was very different and probably more life-threatening, was comparable to the suffering that we feel today from just feeling empty, not having a true purpose in our lives. As Frankl said, blah blah blah, that's why in this time of relative comfort, it is easy to feel cut off, like a traveler with no path or destination. Victor describes this kind of person as having means, but no meaning. Having enough to live, but nothing to live for. Now, I realize that this is somewhat down, but once again, there is hope. According to Frankl, quote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in a given situation." It reminds me of the monk who set himself on fire in the middle of the street, but didn't scream, he didn't panic, he didn't roll over, he didn't move. He just sat there unflinchingly as his body withered away. Under any condition, a man can decide what shall become of him, mentally and spiritually. End quote. That was Viktor Frankl cementing the idea, one of the main themes of his entire book, Man's Search for Meaning, that man is ultimately self-determining. Man is ultimately self-determining. This doesn't mean that man chooses exactly what happens to him, but in a way, He chooses how it reacts to it, and thus he chooses what becomes of it. So Viktor Frankl, he could have became someone who got super bitter at the world, and he got super mad and super angry, but instead he decided, you know what? I'm not gonna let this define me. I'm gonna become past it. I'm gonna learn from it. So instead of getting overtaken by all of the crazy stuff that happened, he instead decided, you know what? I'm gonna create an amazing book. He's written over 30 books now, and they all kind of sprang from the idea of that logotherapy, which is meaning therapy, finding meaning to help you heal, basically. And that's one thing that really helped him a lot. One of my favorite quotes from the whole book that he made was, it's right here on page 91 if you care. Quote, "Only slowly could these men be guided back to the commonplace truth that no one has the right to do wrong, not even if wrong has been done to them." And if you think about that quote, you know that it's simply how it should be. That's why I really respect Viktor Frankl as a guy. It's very good. Now, Viktor Frankl's last point is to remember to always hit the like button and for the YouTube algorithm, and make sure to subscribe for new content. This has been a somewhat summary of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. There's so much more that can be said about it. Like my notes are literally insane because of just how much quality, just how much immense power was in that book. I would highly suggest it. Top 5 books that I've ever read, and I've read over 60 nonfiction books now. This one makes the top 5 list, so I would definitely check this book out. Have an amazing day. Thanks.